getting loose. I woke up to the sound of raindrops hitting the window. There were thin streaks of light coming through the curtains. I rubbed my eyes and reached over to the other side of the bed to find the empty space. I got a cold shiver down my back, which made me think of something I knew but wanted to forget. The cold morning air got in through the cracks, and I had to pull the covers tighter around my body to stay warm. I looked at the alarm clock and saw that my tears had blurred the neon numbers, making it clear that I had to get up early again. The rain kept tapping on the window like a sad symphony, just like the beat of my heart, which was slow, steady, and very lonely. I closed my eyes and let the room's silence wash over me. Memories rose up from the corners of my mind like ghosts, wrapping me in the familiar but painful arms of the past. I pushed them away with a sigh, not wanting to think about the empty feeling that seemed to have taken up residence in me. Even though the raindrops were quiet, they couldn't cover up the sadness of the empty room or the echoes of a person who was there but wasn't. Our marriage had always been up and down, like a roller coaster ride. I knew Robert wasn't the best husband, but I held on to the love we used to have because I thought things would get better someday. We tried for a long time to make it work, even though there were red flags everywhere. But as the years went by, the problems we kept having began to break down the love we had built up. We were locked in a cage of constant arguments and disagreements. The friendship we once had seemed to fade away, leaving us with nothing but resentment for each other. Even though things were getting worse, I clung to the pieces of our broken love and prayed for a miracle to bring us back together. But no matter how hard we tried, the stormy seas of disagreement kept getting in the way of our efforts to save our relationship. Every day that went by made it clearer that we had drifted apart, and the bitter mixture of regret and resentment only made it worse. The soft petals of love were replaced by a sharp sense of sadness, which cast long, cold shadows over our unity. It was like living in the darkness of an eclipse that never ended, with the only light coming from glimmering memories of what once was. It was a powerful reminder of how love can have an effect even when it's not there. When he wanted to be, Robert was a very nice person. The sad part was that he didn't want that charm from me very often. He was good with women, and as time went on, he lost interest in our marriage more and more. In his job and social life, he let distractions get in the way, while I stayed in the background and took care of our home and raised our daughter. Our conversations, which used to be very interesting, turned into short, terse exchanges. I could no longer see the joy in his eyes when he talked about his adventures and successes. It was a symphony that he led with the skill of a maestro, and I was just a bystander watching from the sidelines. His busy social life grew, and our nightly dinners became bits and pieces of time. They were full of the eerie quiet that had taken over our cozy kitchen. My goals and ideas became small whispers that couldn't be heard over the thunderous applause for his rising status. His charming smile used to be my safe place, but now it was for everyone to see, which was something I was no longer entitled to. Surprisingly, the bonds I made while raising our daughter helped me feel better. Her loud laughter and never-ending questions made me feel like I was in my own world, which I wouldn't trade for anything. Even though our relationship was tense, I found a strange kind of peace in putting our broken family back together for her and for myself. I found strength I didn't know I had. My struggles turned into a steady determination to keep going. Robert's charm was for the whole world, but mine was just for our small home. Our little Emily was our whole world, and even though we were in a lot of trouble, she didn't deserve any of it. I tried to keep her safe from everything, even her father's lack of care in his affairs. But she didn't know it, but life had its own cruel way of going. The dramas that happened in the background of our lives were harder to deal with than any play. Emily, who was young and didn't know any better, kept spreading happiness and laughter. Every day she would bring home her red crayon drawings with a proud, beaming smile that reminded us of how innocent she was as a child. It was a stark contrast to the dull colors of our lives that were falling apart around her. Even though the chaos kept going on, she was our only source of hope and the only place we could go to get away from her father's cold attitude and known affairs. But as our problems got worse, they started to leave a sad tone on the good times we had together. Every laugh felt empty, and every story felt like a lie. But I gritted my teeth and held on, determined to protect Emily from a world that was often too harsh for her soft heart. When I had had enough of the lies and excuses, I decided it was time to end our marriage. I wanted to tell Robert in person, but he served me with divorce papers before I could. I was crushed, but what hurt even more was that he wanted to take Emily away from me completely. How brave of this man. He didn't spend much time with her, so why did he want to take her from me? I was so shocked that my hands were shaking as I looked over the papers I was holding. Robert had even made a long list of all of my flaws to back up his outrageous request. He had added up the small things I did wrong as a parent, like coming home from work late sometimes and missing Emily's kindergarten recital because I had to go to an unavoidable work meeting. I felt a flood of different feelings. I felt a mix of emotions I had never felt before, including anger, pain, betrayal, and disbelief. The thing that made me angry the most was that I knew I was a good mother to Emily, even though he said I wasn't. I was there for her through all of her big and small events, unlike Robert. Every big event, like the first time she lost a tooth or went to school, was etched in my heart. My beautiful daughter, whom I loved very much, was about to be taken away from me. The way he tried to act like a loving father was like a slap in the face. All this, even though he was only in Emily's life for a short time. I couldn't understand why he would want to take Emily out of her comfortable routine. How could he be willing to turn her whole life upside down just to hurt me? The nerve of him. With the divorce papers hanging in the air like a dark cloud, I promised myself that Robert would not win this time. But a part of me said, let him have her. But something inside me said, let him have her. So I did it. I knew he was trying to hurt me, but the truth was that I didn't want Emily to end up with a father who would use her to boost his own ego. I also knew that Robert wouldn't be able to handle the responsibility, and that his act of being a loving father would soon fall apart. So it became clear that I was giving up short-term comfort for Emily's long-term well-being. As painful as it was to give in to Robert's reckless demands, I was sure it would show him for what he really was, unable to step up to the plate and fulfill the demanding roles of parenthood. So I gave in to what he wanted and signed the divorce papers without a fight. Over time, I saw how painfully inevitable his decision was, so I gave in to his demands, signed the divorce papers, and didn't fight it. Each stroke of my signature was a silent surrender, encapsulating the years of shared smiles and secret whispers that had lost their shine. I told my broken heart to get over the pain and remember the bond we once shared. His demands, once a sign of our shared life and dreams, became a cruel ending to our shared piece of life. As I packed up my things and got ready to leave the home we had once chosen together, I felt a strange sense of emptiness. It wasn't the painful emptiness of loneliness, but rather the painful realization that our lives were now going in different directions. Despite the pain, I found a hidden strength in acquiescence, a silent form of acceptance that made it all feel a little less scary. He calmly gave Emily's care to his mother, who I have to say did a good job of looking after her. Under her watchful eye, Emily grew up to be a well-mannered and responsible young lady, excelling in both her academics and extracurricular activities. As the years went by, the bond between them grew stronger, leading to a beautiful relationship based on mutual respect and love. Overwhelmed with emotions and grief, Emily found herself battling with a deep-seated sorrow that seemed endless. This monumental loss was not just tragic due to its permanence, but also because of the bitter enemy that caused it: cancer. The silent predator had slithered its way into the fabric of their lives, quietly eroding every sense of normalcy they had ever known. Cancer, an unwelcome guest, had taken away the anchor of their family, leaving Emily and her loved ones adrift in a sea of desolation. The void her grandmother left was unfillable. In her quieter days, Emily could hear the echo of her grandmother's laughter, could see the faint imprint of her nurturing love. Yet, the cruel grasp of cancer had dragged her away, drawing a permanent line that no amount of longing could ever breach. Emily bore this loss bravely, carrying the pain with an indomitable spirit that was a tribute to her grandmother's memory. Her battle, her loss, was a testament to the havoc that cancer wreaks in the lives of people, transforming them forever. At first, he enjoyed being in the spotlight because of his new job. He showed his dedication to Emily on every platform he could. His friends and family praised him for stepping up and doing something he had been putting off. But he couldn't keep up the act for long. Sure enough, Emily started to notice her father's cheating and strange behavior. I cried and shook in the dark of my room when I thought about how she would deal with her father's mistakes. I wanted to hold her and tell her everything would be okay, but I wasn't sure it would be. As the years went by, both Emily and her father had trouble adjusting. Robert started to feel the pressure of being a single parent, but he won't admit it. They tried different things to strengthen their relationship, like weekly movie nights and frequent parent-child talks, so they could face the problems they faced together. Despite these efforts, the strain kept getting worse because Emily and her father couldn't say how they really felt. Robert started calling me to ask me to come over for Emily, but I said no. He will yell at me on the phone when he calls again. You're a terrible excuse for a mother, and the title mother is too prestigious for someone like you. I will laugh hysterically every time he says, "Click, you hangs up." He kept calling me and asking me to come get Emily so he could hook up with his new girlfriend. The sound of his voice was a constant reminder of how far away we were from what we used to be. He kept bugging me with calls to get Emily, too busy in his world to notice the chaos in ours. He was caught up in his new relationship and had stopped caring about his family. His pleas sounded empty and showed that he didn't care about us. I knew what Emily meant to him now. She was just a part of his past, a stepping stone on his way to his love. His calls weren't the cries of a worried father, but the cries of a man who wanted to get away from his responsibilities. Enough, I thought. This wasn't the man I used to love, and Emily didn't look up to him like she used to. It was time we got away from his haunting requests and desperate pleas. His demands were now nothing more than empty requests, echoing the empty void he'd left in our lives. While he enjoyed his new relationship, we no longer would be paintings in the background, sacrificed for his convenience. Emily didn't have to grow up long to realize that her father didn't love either of us. One day she stood up, looked him in the eyes, and told him she was done living with him. She packed her bags and came to live with me. I can't explain how happy I felt when she walked through my door. We had both been through a storm, and now we were standing together on the other side. The tragedy of our story doesn't end with a happy ending. It's tainted by the pain we went through and the price we both had to pay. But in the darkest times, we found a bond stronger than the ties that had held us together before. Emily and I both lost control of our lives, but we worked together to find a new rhythm that gave us warmth and hope. Against all odds, we made it through.